Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're descending to a place where the impossible becomes ordinary, where creatures live under the weight of entire oceans, where a single breath's worth of air from the surface would collapse into nothingness, where every square inch bears the crushing force of 1,000 atmospheres. This is the realm of extreme pressure, the deep sea's most unforgiving gift. Imagine holding your hand flat, palm up, feeling the gentle weight of air above it. Now imagine that same hand bearing the weight of 10 elephants, then 100, then 1,000. This is what it means to exist in the deepest parts of our ocean, where pressure doesn't just touch you, it transforms you, where the very molecules of your body would buckle and bend under forces that seem impossible to survive. And yet, life not only endures there, it flourishes. Creatures drift through this liquid cosmos of crushing force as gracefully as butterflies dance through summer air. They have learned something we are only beginning to understand, that pressure is not the enemy of life. It is life's most patient sculptor, carving forms and solutions we never imagined possible. Tonight, we'll follow them down, discovering not just how they survive, but how they've turned the ocean's most deadly embrace into home. So where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it where you are? Let's get into the video. Let's begin with something you can feel right now. Take a breath. Feel the air, fill your lungs, gentle and easy. Now imagine that same breath, that same simple act, happening 1 kilometer beneath the ocean's surface. Down there, the weight pressing against everything is not the light touch of atmosphere we know, but the accumulated mass of 1,000 meters of water above. Every breath would be impossible. Every heartbeat would struggle against forces that would crush a human body in milliseconds. Pressure in the deep sea is not simply force. It is presence. It is the ocean's memory of depth, translated into physical weight that touches everything, changes everything, shapes everything. At the surface, we live under one atmosphere of pressure, 14.7 pounds, pressing on every square inch of our bodies. We don't notice this gentle embrace, because we evolved within it, because our blood and bones and breath are calibrated to this exact touch. But descend just 10 meters into the ocean, and pressure doubles. 20 meters down, it triples. By the time you reach 100 meters, the depth where sunlight finally surrenders to darkness, pressure has grown 10 times stronger than anything your lungs were designed to handle. A balloon filled with air from the surface would shrink to 1/10 of its size. A hollow object would collapse. A human diver, even with equipment, begins to feel the ocean's increasing grip. Continue deeper, and the mathematics become staggering. At 1,000 meters, pressure reaches 100 atmospheres. That means every square inch of surface bears the weight of nearly 1,500 pounds. Imagine carrying a small car on every inch of your body, and you begin to understand what the ocean asks of anything that dares to live in its middle depths. But we have barely begun our descent. At 4,000 meters, on the abyssal plains where much of the deep ocean spreads like a vast underwater desert, pressure climbs to 400 atmospheres. Here the weight pressing down equals that of 400 cars stacked on every square inch. The physics seems impossible. How could anything soft, anything alive, anything delicate enough to move and feed and reproduce, exist under such crushing force? Yet this is still not the ocean's deepest embrace. In the Hadal trenches, those cathedral deep chasms that plunge toward the Earth's core, pressure reaches over 1,000 atmospheres, 11,000 pounds per square inch, the weight of the entire ocean above, concentrated and relentless. At these depths, in places like the Mariana Trench, pressure becomes more than physics. It becomes a fundamental condition of existence, as basic and shaping as gravity itself. To understand this force, imagine every drop of water in the Pacific Ocean pressing downward. Imagine the liquid weight of storms and currents, of icebergs and tropical seas, all focused into a crushing embrace that would flatten any surface dweller instantly. This is the reality that deep-sea creatures call home, not a hostile environment to endure, but the only world they know, the only world where their bodies make sense. Water itself becomes different under such pressure. Its molecules pack closer together, its density increases. Chemical reactions that might take hours at the surface happen in minutes, in the deep. The very nature of liquid changes, becoming denser, more viscous, more capable of carrying the signatures of minerals and chemicals dissolved over geological time. And here lies the first mystery we'll unravel tonight. Pressure, which seems like the ultimate barrier to life, has instead become life's most creative constraint. In the crushing dark of the deep ocean, evolution has not simply found ways to survive impossible forces, it has learned to sculpt with them, to dance with them, to turn the ocean's most deadly attribute into the foundation for forms of beauty and adaptation that exist nowhere else on Earth. Consider what happens to ordinary matter under such force. Steel would buckle, concrete would crumble, even diamond, the hardest natural substance we know, would eventually yield to the relentless weight of 1,000 atmospheres. But somehow, life has learned to be softer than steel, and more resilient than diamond. It has discovered ways to bend without breaking, to yield without surrendering. The weight of water is not just measurement, it is sculptor, architect, and gentle tyrant all at once. And somehow, in ways we are only beginning to understand, it has taught life to be soft where we would be rigid, fluid where we would be brittle, and graceful where we would simply cease to exist. To understand the miracle of deep-sea survival, we must first witness the violence of what pressure does to life unprepared for its touch. Let us begin with ourselves, with the fragile architecture of surface-dwelling bodies, and descend together into the crushing realm where our biology becomes our enemy. Take a human body, soft and warm and filled with the gentle spaces that make life possible. Our lungs, those delicate balloons that expand and contract with each breath, contain air at surface pressure. Descend just 30 meters into the ocean, and that air compresses to 1/3 of its volume. The chest cavity, designed for the give and take of atmospheric breathing, begins to feel the squeeze. Go deeper, to 100 meters, and the air in our lungs shrinks to 1/10 of its original size. Our rib cage, evolved to protect soft organs, becomes a cage that cannot yield enough to accommodate the compression. But this is merely the beginning of pressure's assault on surface life. Within our bodies flow liquids and gases in careful balance. Blood carries dissolved nitrogen, harmless at sea level, but deadly under pressure. As we descend, that nitrogen compresses and concentrates, ready to form bubbles in our bloodstream if we rise too quickly. Our cells, those microscopic chambers of life, are filled with water and delicate proteins that have never known forces beyond the gentle touch of 1 atmosphere. At 500 meters depth, pressure reaches 50 atmospheres. A human body, even protected by the most advanced diving equipment, would face forces that no surface-evolved organism was meant to endure. The gases in our bloodstream would behave like foreign substances. The proteins that make up our muscles, our organs, our very thoughts, would begin to change shape under the relentless squeeze. Consider the proteins themselves, those intricate molecular machines that make life possible. Each protein is folded in precise ways, like origami made of atoms, shaped by millions of years of evolution to perform specific tasks at specific pressures. Under the weight of deep water, these molecular sculptures begin to unfold. Enzymes lose their ability to catalyze reactions. Structural proteins weaken. The very chemistry of life, calibrated for surface conditions, starts to break down. Our cell membranes, those gossamer barriers that separate our inner chemistry from the world, are perhaps most vulnerable of all. Made of lipids arranged in delicate double layers, they rely on precise spacing and flexibility to function. Under extreme pressure, these membranes can collapse, can lose their ability to control what enters and leaves our cells. When cell membranes fail, life itself fails. And then there are the gases that surface creatures depend upon. The oxygen in our bloodstream behaves differently under pressure, becoming toxic at depths that seem modest compared to the true abyss. Nitrogen, inert and harmless at sea level, becomes a narcotic agent under pressure, clouding thought and judgment. Even carbon dioxide, the simple waste product of our metabolism, changes its behavior in the crushing deep. Watch what happens to a simple object from the surface world when it encounters true deep-sea pressure. A styrofoam cup lowered to abyssal depths returns compressed to a fraction of its size, its cellular structure collapsed, but its basic form intact. Now imagine that cup filled with the delicate chemistry of life, with flowing blood and firing neurons, and the constant dance of molecular reactions that keep us alive. The crushing point for surface life is not a single depth, but a gradual transition from function to failure. First, the air spaces collapse, then the proteins begin to denature. Cell membranes lose their integrity. Chemical processes slow or stop entirely. What we call death under pressure is really the systematic breakdown of every system that evolution designed for the gentle world above. Even creatures adapted to modest depths face limits they cannot cross. A fish from 200 meters depth, brought suddenly to 4,000 meters, would experience the same crushing fate as any surface dweller. Its swim bladder would compress until its body could no longer maintain buoyancy. Its proteins, evolved for moderate pressure, would unfold under the weight of the true abyss. This is the harsh reality that makes deep-sea life so remarkable. The forces that would destroy us in moments, that would reduce our complex biology to compressed failure, are the same forces that cradle and nurture the most extraordinary life forms our planet has produced. Understanding our limitations, feeling the weight of what pressure can do to unprepared life, is the first step toward appreciating the genius of creatures that have learned to call such crushing depths home. The abyss does not make exceptions. It does not gentle its grip for the unprepared. It simply waits, patient and implacable, for life to learn its lessons or surrender to its weight. In the crushing depths where pressure would destroy any rigid thing, life has discovered its most elegant solution: softness. Not the softness of weakness, but the softness of water itself, yielding to force while maintaining its essential nature. Here in the abyss, evolution has learned that the secret to surviving impossible pressure is not to resist it, but to become it. Consider the jellyfish, those translucent ghosts that drift through the deep like living water. Their bodies contain no bones to snap, no rigid shells to crack, no air-filled spaces to collapse. They are 95% water, their tissues so close to the density of seawater that pressure passes through them like wind through mist. When a jellyfish encounters the crushing force of 1,000 atmospheres, its body simply equalizes, matching the pressure inside and out, until there is no difference, no conflict, no destruction. It survives not by fighting the ocean's weight, but by becoming indistinguishable from it. The deep sea has produced creatures that seem more like dreams than animals, beings so soft and translucent, they appear to be made of the water itself. Glass sponges build their skeletons not from calcium carbonate, like their shallow water cousins, but from silica arranged in intricate, flexible lattices. These structures bend and flex under pressure, maintaining their shape, while yielding to forces that would shatter any rigid framework. Deep-sea squids have abandoned the hard beaks and solid structures of their surface relatives. Their bodies are bags of fluid, their tissues gelatinous and yielding. The giant squid, massive as it is, contains no swim bladder, no gas-filled spaces that could collapse under pressure. Its ammonia-rich tissues provide buoyancy without the vulnerability of air, creating a creature that can exist in the crushing depths while maintaining the mobility to hunt and survive. Watch a deep-sea octopus as it moves through the abyssal darkness. Its body flows like liquid mercury, every movement a demonstration of perfect pressure adaptation. With no internal skeleton to limit its flexibility, it can compress its entire body to fit through spaces smaller than its resting size. Under extreme pressure, this flexibility becomes salvation. The octopus's body simply conforms to whatever space pressure allows, never fighting the forces that would crush rigid creatures instantly. The hagfish, that ancient eel-like creature of the deep, represents softness perfected over hundreds of millions of years. Its body is a tube of muscle and mucus, devoid of any hard structures except for a simple notochord. Under pressure, the hagfish becomes more like a liquid than a solid, its tissues flowing and adjusting to accommodate forces that would flatten any vertebrate with conventional bones. When threatened, it can tie itself in knots, its impossible flexibility allowing movements that demonstrate the power of yielding to pressure rather than resisting it. Even the fish of the deep have learned the lessons of softness. The snailfish that live in the deepest trenches have skulls made not of solid bone but of cartilage and soft tissue. Their bones contain less calcium than surface fish, making them more flexible and less likely to crack under pressure. Their bodies are gelatinous, their skin loose and yielding. They swim not with the rigid efficiency of surface fish, but with the fluid grace of creatures that have learned to be water within water. Many deep-sea creatures have evolved tissues that are almost entirely water, with just enough protein structure to maintain basic form and function. Their flesh feels more like jelly than meat, their internal organs suspended in fluid that matches the pressure of their environment. These animals exist in a state of perfect hydraulic balance, their internal pressure exactly matching the crushing force of the water around them. The vampire squid, despite its fearsome name, embodies the gentle philosophy of deep-sea survival. Its body is so soft and flexible that it can invert itself, turning inside out when threatened. This incredible softness allows it to drift through the water column at depths where pressure would instantly destroy any rigid creature. Its dark red coloration and flowing movements make it appear more like a piece of the deep itself than a living animal. Soft corals in the deep sea grow in forms impossible in shallow water, their skeletons made of flexible proteins rather than rigid calcium carbonate. They bend and sway in the deep currents, their softness allowing them to inhabit environments where hard corals could not survive. These creatures demonstrate that even sessile life that cannot flee from pressure, can thrive by embracing yielding as a survival strategy. The deep-sea cucumber, with its soft elongated body, represents the ultimate expression of pressure adaptation through flexibility. Its skin is loose and baggy, able to accommodate changes in internal pressure without tearing. Its internal organs float freely in body fluid, unconstrained by rigid structures that might fail under extreme force. It moves across the seafloor like a living pillow, its softness allowing it to exist where harder creatures would be crushed flat. In the deepest trenches, where pressure reaches its most extreme levels, life has discovered that true strength lies not in hardness, but in the ability to yield completely while maintaining essential function. These creatures have learned what water knew all along, that the softest things can survive the greatest forces by never standing rigid against them, by flowing around obstacles rather than confronting them, by finding power in surrender rather than resistance. This is the first great lesson the abyss teaches, that survival sometimes requires abandoning everything we think makes us strong, and embracing a different kind of resilience entirely. Beneath the soft, yielding bodies of deep-sea creatures lies an invisible revolution happening at the smallest scale imaginable. While their external forms bend and flow like living water, inside their cells, an extraordinary molecular alchemy unfolds. Here, proteins twist into impossible shapes, membranes defy the laws that govern surface life, and the very building blocks of existence are rewritten to thrive under crushing force. At the heart of this cellular sorcery are the proteins, those intricate molecular machines that make life possible. In the surface world, proteins fold into precise three-dimensional shapes, their structure determined by the gentle forces of atmospheric pressure. But take these same proteins into the deep, and they would unfold like origami in a hurricane, their delicate architecture collapsing under the weight of 1,000 atmospheres. Deep-sea creatures have solved this problem through millions of years of molecular engineering. Their proteins are different, fundamentally altered at the level of individual amino acids. These pressure-adapted proteins contain more glycine and proline, amino acids that create flexible hinges and tight turns in protein structure. The result is proteins that can compress under extreme pressure without losing their essential function, like springs that grow stronger when squeezed. The enzymes that drive cellular chemistry in the deep operate by rules unknown to surface biochemistry. Normal enzymes would slow to a crawl or stop entirely under extreme pressure, their active sites distorted beyond function. But deep-sea enzymes have evolved active sites that actually improve under pressure, their molecular pockets becoming more precise and efficient as the weight of water compresses them into optimal shapes. Consider the enzyme that repairs DNA in deep-sea bacteria. At surface pressure, this molecular machine works slowly, inefficiently, but under the crushing force of abyssal depths, its structure compresses into a more perfect form, allowing it to repair genetic damage with remarkable speed and precision. Pressure, the destroyer of surface proteins, becomes the perfecter of deep-sea biochemistry. The cell membranes of deep-sea organisms represent another masterpiece of molecular adaptation. In surface creatures, cell membranes are made of lipids that would become rigid and brittle under extreme pressure, like oil freezing in Arctic cold. Deep-sea cells solve this with membranes rich in polyunsaturated fatty acids, molecular structures that remain fluid and functional, even when compressed by forces that would solidify normal cellular boundaries. These specialized membranes also contain unique sterols and hopanoids, molecules that act like molecular antifreeze, maintaining membrane flexibility under conditions that would turn surface cell walls into rigid impermeable barriers. The membranes of deep-sea bacteria contain branched fatty acids that create pockets of flexibility, allowing the cellular boundary to compress without losing its ability to control what enters and leaves the cell. Within these pressure-adapted cells, osmolytes work their quiet magic. These small organic molecules, including trimethylamine oxide and glycine betaine, act as cellular cushions, protecting proteins from deformation under extreme pressure. They surround vital proteins, like molecular bubble wrap, maintaining the delicate spacing that allows enzymes to function even when the outside world presses in with impossible force. The DNA of deep-sea creatures tells its own story of pressure adaptation. Normal DNA would be compressed into dysfunctional tangles under abyssal pressure, its double helix structure distorted beyond the ability to carry genetic information. But deep-sea organisms produce specialized proteins that bind to their DNA, creating protective scaffolds that maintain the proper spacing of genetic material even under crushing force. Some deep-sea bacteria have evolved DNA repair systems so efficient they can fix pressure-induced damage faster than it occurs. Their genetic material is constantly being compressed and released as they move through pressure gradients, but their molecular repair crews work with such precision that genetic integrity never fails. They exist in a state of constant molecular maintenance, their cellular scenery continuously rebuilding itself to match the demands of their crushing environment. The ribosomes that build proteins in deep-sea cells are marvels of pressure engineering. These molecular factories would jam and fail under the forces of the deep, but evolution has redesigned them with flexible hinges and pressure-resistant binding sites. Deep-sea ribosomes actually work faster under pressure, their compressed structure allowing them to assemble proteins with greater speed and accuracy than their surface counterparts. Even the simple act of cellular respiration becomes extraordinary in the deep. The mitochondria of deep-sea organisms contain modified respiratory chains that function optimally under pressure, their electron transport systems redesigned to work efficiently when compressed. Some deep-sea creatures derive more energy from each molecule of glucose than surface organisms, their pressure-adapted biochemistry squeezing more power from the same fuel. Perhaps most remarkable are the pressure-sensing proteins that allow deep-sea creatures to navigate their vertical world. These molecular sensors can detect minute changes in pressure, allowing organisms to maintain their preferred depth with extraordinary precision. They exist in a state of constant molecular awareness, their proteins literally feeling the weight of water above them and adjusting cellular chemistry accordingly. The chaperone proteins that help fold other proteins in deep-sea cells work by principles unknown to surface biochemistry. Under extreme pressure, these molecular assistants become more active, not less, helping to maintain proper protein structure under conditions that would cause chaos in surface cells. They are the unsung heroes of deep-sea survival, constantly working to maintain cellular order in a world that should dissolve it into compressed chaos. This invisible molecular landscape represents evolution's most sophisticated response to pressure. At the cellular level, deep-sea creatures have not merely survived the crushing depths, they have transformed pressure from destroyer to ally, using forces that would annihilate surface life to power their own extraordinary biochemistry. In the microscopic spaces within their cells, they have learned to make crushing pressure not just tolerable, but essential. There exists in the deepest trenches a paradox so profound it challenges everything we think we know about survival. We imagine pressure as an enemy, a crushing force to be endured or escaped. But in the most extreme depths of our planet, some creatures have evolved beyond endurance. They have made pressure not just tolerable, but necessary. Remove them from their crushing home, and they die not from the violence of decompression, but from the absence of the very force we consider deadly. Meet the barophilic bacteria, those microscopic pioneers that thrive only under extreme pressure. Barophilic means pressure-loving, and these organisms have taken that love to its ultimate conclusion. They cannot survive at surface pressure. Bring them up from the depths, and their cellular machinery simply stops working. Their enzymes lose function, their membranes become chaotic, their metabolism grinds to a halt. They have evolved so completely for high-pressure existence that normal atmospheric pressure becomes toxic to them. In the laboratories where scientists study these remarkable organisms, special pressure chambers must maintain crushing forces just to keep the bacteria alive. Remove the pressure, and within hours these creatures begin to die, not from any external assault, but from the sudden absence of the crushing environment that has become as essential to them as oxygen is to us. They represent life's most extreme adaptation to pressure, organisms that have crossed the threshold from tolerance to dependence. The piezophilic archaea, ancient single-celled organisms found in the deepest ocean trenches, have taken this pressure dependence even further. These beings reproduce faster under extreme pressure, their growth rates actually increasing as crushing force intensifies. At surface pressure, they enter a kind of dormancy, their life processes slowing until they become nearly inactive. But return them to the crushing depths, and they spring to life with remarkable vigor, their cellular processes accelerating to match the intensity of their high-pressure environment. Some deep-sea bacteria have evolved pressure-activated genes, sections of DNA that only function under extreme force. These genetic switches remain dormant at low pressure, but activate as crushing forces increase, triggering the production of specialized proteins and enzymes that allow the organism to thrive. It's as if pressure itself has become a key that unlocks their full biological potential. Consider the deep-sea yeast species discovered in the Japan Trench. Organisms that not only survive at pressures exceeding 800 atmospheres, but actually require such forces to complete their life cycles. Their reproductive processes are triggered by extreme pressure, their spores germinating only when subjected to crushing forces that would instantly destroy surface organisms. They have made pressure an integral part of their biological calendar, as essential to their survival as seasonal changes are to surface life. The proteins within these pressure-dependent organisms tell a remarkable story of evolutionary commitment. Unlike the pressure-tolerant proteins of other deep-sea creatures, these molecular machines have evolved past the point of surface functionality. Their active sites are designed to work optimally only under crushing force, their binding sites shaped by millions of years of high-pressure existence. At surface pressure, these proteins don't just work poorly, they don't work at all. Deep-sea viruses that infect pressure-dependent bacteria have also evolved this extreme specialization. These microscopic entities can only replicate under high pressure, their genetic material designed to function in an environment of constant compression. Remove them from their crushing habitat, and their ability to reproduce simply vanishes, their molecular machinery calibrated for forces that exist nowhere but in the deepest parts of our planet. The metabolic pathways of pressure-loving organisms operate through biochemical routes unknown to surface life. They have evolved enzymatic cascades that require extreme pressure to maintain proper configuration, chemical reactions that can only proceed under crushing force. Their entire biochemistry has become dependent on the very condition that would annihilate most life on Earth. Some of these organisms demonstrate pressure-dependent chemotaxis, meaning they actively seek out and move toward areas of higher pressure. They navigate their world not by following chemical gradients or light, but by sensing and pursuing the crushing forces that sustain their existence. To them, pressure is not an obstacle to overcome, but a resource to locate and exploit. The cell walls of obligate biophiles, organisms that absolutely require high pressure to survive, have evolved specialized structures that only function under extreme compression. These cellular boundaries become permeable and dysfunctional at low pressure, unable to maintain the delicate chemical balance that keeps the cell alive. They need the crushing grip of deep water to maintain their most basic cellular integrity. Perhaps most remarkably, some deep-sea organisms have evolved pressure-dependent communication systems. They release signaling molecules that only maintain their proper structure under extreme pressure, chemical messages that would disintegrate at surface conditions. Their ability to coordinate behavior, to recognize kin, to respond to environmental changes, all depends on the crushing environment they call home. These pressure-dependent creatures represent evolution's most extreme response to the challenge of deep-sea existence. They have not merely adapted to survive crushing force, they have made that force so central to their biology that they cannot exist without it. They live in a state of perfect symbiosis with pressure itself, organisms that have discovered how to make the ocean's most hostile attribute into the foundation of their existence. In their dependence on crushing force, these creatures reveal pressure's ultimate transformation from destroyer to creator, from obstacle to opportunity, from death to life itself. In the crushing depths where pressure reigns as the ultimate sculptor, life has learned to surrender its form to forces beyond imagination. Here in the darkness where 1,000 atmospheres press against every surface, evolution has carved creatures into shapes that exist nowhere else on Earth. These beings are not merely adapted to pressure, they are living sculptures, their very bodies testament to millions of years of patient shaping by the ocean's relentless embrace. The deep-sea snailfish reveals pressure's artistry in its most elegant form. These creatures possess no swim bladders, those gas-filled organs that would collapse instantly under extreme force. Instead, their bodies are streamlined into teardrop perfection, every curve and contour designed to slip through water dense as liquid metal. Their bones are soft and cartilaginous, bending rather than breaking under pressure that would shatter conventional skeletons. Evolution has carved away everything rigid, everything brittle, leaving only the essential architecture of survival. Watch how pressure has reshaped the skull itself in deep-sea fish. The cranium, that protective vault that houses the brain in surface creatures, becomes an open framework in the depths. Bone gives way to cartilage. Solid protection yields to flexible framework. The brain of a deep-sea fish sits within a skull that can compress and expand with pressure changes. Its protective housing designed not for rigid defense, but for hydraulic harmony with the crushing environment. The eyes of deep-sea creatures tell their own story of pressure's influence on form. Some species have evolved enormous eyes, their visual organs swollen to capture the faintest traces of bioluminescent light filtering through the darkness. But pressure shapes even these organs of sight, creating eyes that are more like fluid-filled balloons than the rigid spheres we know. The lenses flex and adjust under pressure, their shape constantly changing to maintain focus in an environment where the very density of water affects how light travels. Other deep-sea fish have taken the opposite path, allowing pressure to erase their vision entirely. The Texas blind salamander of underwater caves, the eyeless shrimp of hydrothermal vents, creatures whose ancestors once saw but whose descendants have learned that in the crushing dark, other senses serve better than sight. Pressure has sculpted away their eyes, carving smooth skin where once optical organs protruded, creating beings that navigate by touch, by chemical sensation, by the subtle pressure waves that ripple through dense water. The feeding apparatus of deep-sea creatures reveals pressure's role as functional designer. The gulper eel's jaw can unhinge to impossible proportions, its skull transformed into a mechanical marvel that opens like a python's but moves with fluid grace through water thick as syrup. The anglerfish's mouth becomes a cavern lined with needle teeth, its jaw structure engineered to create suction powerful enough to draw prey through pressure-dense water. These are not merely large mouths, they are pressure-adapted feeding systems, their mechanics refined by the physics of deep-water hunting. Bioluminescent organs, those living lights that dot the bodies of deep-sea creatures, are themselves sculptures of pressure adaptation. The photophores that create these lights are protected by specialized tissues that maintain their delicate chemistry under crushing force. The light-producing bacteria that live symbiotically within many deep-sea fish are housed in pressure-resistant chambers, their luminous chemistry preserved within cellular structures that can withstand forces no surface organism has ever encountered. The reproductive organs of deep-sea creatures show pressure's influence on the most intimate aspects of biology. Many deep-sea fish have evolved external fertilization strategies that work efficiently in high-pressure environments. Their gametes designed to function in water so dense it affects the basic physics of cellular movement. The male anglerfish, fused permanently to the female's body, represents the ultimate pressure sculpture. Two individuals merged into one organism by evolutionary forces that recognize the difficulty of finding mates in the crushing dark. Swimming strategies in the deep are themselves shaped by pressure's demands. The undulating movements of deep-sea eels, the slow-motion ballet of deep-sea jellyfish, the hydraulic jet propulsion of deep-sea squid, all represent swimming styles calibrated for water so dense that normal swimming motions would prove ineffective. These creatures move through their environment like dancers adapted to perform underwater, their every motion a response to the physical properties of their pressure-modified world. The body cavity organization of deep-sea creatures reflects pressure's role as internal architect. Their organs float freely within body fluids that match external pressure, suspended in internal seas that rise and fall with the crushing forces outside. There are no rigid internal supports, no solid frameworks to constrain the organ's ability to compress and expand. The internal anatomy of a deep-sea fish is more like a hydraulic system than a mechanical structure, every organ able to change shape while maintaining function. Even the skin of deep-sea creatures bears pressure's artistic signature. Loose and baggy in many species, this external covering can accommodate dramatic changes in internal pressure without tearing or constraining movement. The skin becomes not just protection but an expandable boundary, a flexible container that allows the entire organism to exist in harmony with its crushing environment. Pressure has sculpted these creatures not just for survival but for efficiency, creating forms that waste no energy fighting forces that cannot be defeated. Every streamlined curve, every flexible joint, every hydraulic organ system represents millions of years of pressure's patient artistry, carving away everything unnecessary and perfecting everything essential until only the most elegant solutions remain. Between the surface world of gentle atmospheric pressure and the crushing depths of abyssal trenches lies a vertical highway traveled by some of the ocean's most remarkable commuters. These are the gradient travelers, creatures that routinely cross pressure zones that would destroy most life, moving between worlds as different as Earth and alien planets. with the casual grace of birds migrating between seasons. The sperm whale represents perhaps the most magnificent of these pressure voyagers. At the surface, breathing air and socializing in family pods, these massive mammals live under the same single atmosphere that we do. But when the hunt calls, they dive deeper than any air-breathing creature should be able to survive, down through crushing depths that would collapse human lungs, past pressures that would force nitrogen into fatal solution in ordinary blood. They descend to depths where giant squid wait in the darkness. At 2,000 meters depth, where pressure reaches 200 atmospheres, the sperm whale's body undergoes transformations that border on the miraculous. Its lungs, those air-filled organs that make surface breathing possible, collapse completely. But this collapse is not destruction, it is design. The whale's ribcage flexes inward, compressing the lungs until they hold virtually no air at all. This eliminates the nitrogen absorption that would kill a human diver, allowing the whale to avoid decompression sickness entirely. The whale's oxygen supply during these incredible dives comes not from its compressed lungs, but from oxygen stored in its blood and muscle tissue. Its blood carries nearly twice the oxygen concentration of terrestrial mammals, while specialized proteins in its muscles hold additional reserves. During the dive, the whale's heart rate drops dramatically. Blood flow is redirected away from non-essential organs, and its metabolism slows to conserve the precious oxygen that must sustain it through the crushing depths. Elephant seals undertake similar journeys between pressure worlds, diving to depths exceeding 1,500 meters in pursuit of deep-sea fish and squid. These remarkable pinnipeds can hold their breath for over an hour while navigating pressure changes that would prove instantly fatal to most mammals. Their blood is enriched with oxygen-carrying red blood cells, stored in an enlarged spleen that releases them into circulation during deep dives. But perhaps even more remarkable are the adaptations that allow these mammals to surface safely after experiencing crushing pressures. The Weddell seal, diving beneath Antarctic ice to depths where pressure reaches 60 atmospheres, must manage pressure transitions that would give human divers decompression sickness. Yet these seals surface rapidly without apparent harm, their bodies somehow processing the pressure changes that would create fatal nitrogen bubbles in human blood. Among fish, the vertical migrators demonstrate pressure adaptation in forms both subtle and dramatic. Many deep-sea fish undertake nightly migrations from the depths to surface waters, rising through pressure gradients that span hundreds of atmospheres. The lanternfish, those small bioluminescent swimmers that form the backbone of deep-sea food webs, regularly travel between depths of 800 meters and the surface, their bodies managing pressure changes that would destroy most organisms. These migrating fish possess specialized swim bladders that can adjust to dramatic pressure changes without rupturing. Some species can actively absorb and release gases from their swim bladders, allowing them to maintain neutral buoyancy across a wide range of depths. Others have evolved swim bladders filled with lipids rather than gas, creating buoyancy organs that remain functional across extreme pressure gradients. The daily vertical migration undertaken by countless deep-sea creatures represents the largest movement of biomass on our planet. Each evening, as darkness falls across the ocean's surface, billions of organisms rise from the depths, their bodies traversing pressure zones that separate distinct worlds. Copepods, the size of rice grains, travel from depths where pressure would crush a human to surface waters where they feed on phytoplankton, then return to the safety of the deep before dawn breaks. Certain species of squid have mastered pressure transition through remarkable behavioral adaptations. They ascend slowly through pressure gradients, allowing their bodies time to adjust to decreasing pressure. Their soft, fluid-filled bodies can accommodate pressure changes more easily than rigid organisms, but even they must manage the transition carefully to avoid tissue damage from rapid decompression. Some fish species demonstrate seasonal pressure migration, moving between shallow and deep waters as food availability changes throughout the year. The orange ruffy, a deep-sea fish that can live for over a century, migrates between depths of several hundred meters and over 1,000 meters, its body somehow managing the pressure transitions that mark these movements between vertical territories. The beaked whales represent perhaps the most extreme mammalian pressure travelers, diving to depths exceeding 3,000 meters in pursuit of deep-sea squid. At such depths, pressure reaches 300 atmospheres, forces that would compress any air-filled space to less than 1% of its surface volume. These whales have evolved specialized tissues that can store tremendous amounts of oxygen, allowing them to remain active hunters even in the crushing depths where their prey dwells. The physiological mechanisms that allow gradient travelers to survive pressure transitions include specialized blood chemistry, modified gas-filled organs, and altered tissue structures. Many possess enhanced oxygen-carrying capacity in their blood, specialized proteins that prevent pressure-induced tissue damage, and modified nervous systems that can function across wide pressure ranges. These remarkable creatures remind us that the ocean's vertical dimension represents not a barrier but a highway, traveled daily by migrants whose bodies have learned to treat crushing pressure not as an absolute boundary, but as just another environmental condition to navigate with grace. In the crushing depths where we expect only hardship and limitation, pressure reveals itself as an unexpected benefactor, offering gifts that exist nowhere else in the natural world. What seems like the ocean's most punishing attribute becomes, in the hands of evolution, a creative force that opens doors to possibilities impossible under the gentle conditions of surface life. Pressure transforms the very nature of chemical reactions, accelerating processes that would crawl along at surface conditions. In the deep sea, enzymatic reactions that might take hours in shallow water occur in minutes or seconds. The crushing force compresses molecules into proximity, increasing reaction rates and creating chemical efficiencies unknown to surface biochemistry. Deep-sea bacteria exploit this pressure-enhanced chemistry, powering their metabolism with reactions that become more energetic as pressure increases. The density of deep water compressed by tremendous force creates a medium unlike anything in the surface world. This dense liquid carries nutrients and chemical signals with remarkable efficiency, allowing organisms to detect food sources and communicate with each other across greater distances than surface creatures could achieve. Chemical gradients remain stable longer in the dense water of the depths, creating reliable highways of scent and taste that guide predators to prey and mates to each other. Under extreme pressure, water itself becomes a different substance. Its molecules pack more tightly together, creating a liquid with altered properties that deep-sea life has learned to exploit. This pressure-modified water has enhanced thermal conductivity, allowing heat to flow more efficiently from hydrothermal vents to the organisms that depend on their warmth. The dense water also provides superior buoyancy support, allowing creatures to maintain position in the water column with minimal energy expenditure. Pressure creates unique states of matter that exist only in the deep ocean. Certain organic compounds that would be gases or loose liquids at surface pressure become dense, energy-rich substances under crushing force. Deep-sea organisms have evolved to utilize these pressure-concentrated compounds as high-energy food sources, deriving more nutrition from each meal than their surface counterparts could extract from similar prey. The crushing environment of the deep sea acts as a natural concentrator of dissolved minerals and trace elements. Pressure forces these substances into solution at concentrations impossible in surface waters, creating a mineral-rich environment that supports unique forms of metabolism. Some deep-sea bacteria can feed directly on dissolved metals, their pressure-adapted enzymes capable of processing mineral nutrients at concentrations that would be toxic to surface life. Temperature dynamics in high-pressure environments follow rules that don't apply to surface waters. Under extreme pressure, water can remain liquid at temperatures far below its normal freezing point, and thermal energy transfers more efficiently through the dense medium. This creates thermal microenvironments around hydrothermal vents where temperature gradients remain stable, allowing organisms to position themselves precisely within their preferred thermal ranges. The acoustic properties of deep, pressure-compressed water offer communication advantages unavailable to surface dwellers. Sound travels faster and farther in the dense depths, allowing deep-sea creatures to communicate across vast distances with minimal energy expenditure. The pressure-modified acoustic environment also reduces background noise, creating cleaner communication channels for organisms that rely on sound to navigate and coordinate behavior. Pressure acts as a natural preservative in the deep ocean, slowing decomposition processes and creating long-lasting food sources. Organic matter that would decay rapidly at the surface can persist for months or years in the deep, creating reliable food banks that sustain entire ecosystems. This pressure-induced preservation allows deep-sea communities to exist in environments where surface ecosystems would collapse from lack of consistent nutrition. The crushing force of deep water provides mechanical advantages for certain feeding strategies. Filter-feeding organisms can use pressure differentials to drive water through their feeding apparatus more efficiently, while predators can exploit pressure dynamics to create powerful suction for capturing prey. The dense water provides resistance that allows some creatures to generate more force with less muscular effort than would be possible in the thin water of surface environments. Pressure gradients themselves become navigational tools for deep-sea organisms. Many species can sense minute pressure changes with remarkable accuracy, using these sensory abilities to maintain precise depth positioning or to detect the approach of other organisms. This pressure-based navigation system allows creatures to move through the three-dimensional darkness of the deep with a precision that rivals visual navigation in surface waters. The high-pressure environment also provides protection from certain types of predation and competition. Surface organisms cannot invade the deep-sea realm, creating evolutionary fugor, where ancient lineages can persist without pressure from more recently evolved competitors. This pressure barrier has allowed deep-sea ecosystems to develop along unique evolutionary pathways, producing forms of life that might have been eliminated in the more competitive surface environment. Under extreme pressure, biological processes can achieve efficiencies impossible at surface conditions. Cellular membrane transport becomes more effective, protein folding occurs more rapidly and accurately, and energy storage systems can pack more power into smaller spaces. These pressure-enhanced biological processes allow deep-sea organisms to maximize their efficiency in an environment where energy is precious and waste cannot be tolerated. Pressure transforms the deep sea from a hostile wasteland into a realm of unexpected opportunity, where the crushing force that would destroy surface life becomes the foundation for biological innovations found nowhere else on Earth. In the deepest places our planet has to offer, where the ocean floor plunges into cathedral-deep chasms that seem to reach toward the Earth's molten core, life exists at the very edge of possibility. These are the Hadal zones, trenches deeper than 6,000 meters, where pressure exceeds 800 atmospheres, where the crushing force of the entire ocean above creates conditions more extreme than those found on most alien worlds we can imagine. The Mariana Trench, that deepest of all earthly chasms, descends nearly 11,000 meters below the surface, creating pressure environments exceeding 1,100 atmospheres. Here, in Challenger Deep, the lowest point accessible to life on our planet, the crushing force reaches 16,000 pounds per square inch. To exist in such a place should be impossible, yet creatures not only survive but thrive in this ultimate test of biological engineering. The pseudo-Liparis snailfish, discovered in the Japan Trench at depths exceeding 8,000 meters, represents the deepest known fish species on Earth. This translucent creature, no larger than a human hand, possesses adaptations so extreme they challenge our understanding of vertebrate biology. Its bones are barely calcified, more like flexible cartilage than rigid skeletal support. Its skull is incompletely formed, with gaps that allow its brain case to compress under extreme pressure without crushing the delicate neural tissue within. These deepest fish have evolved bodies that are more liquid than solid, their tissues so gelatinous they feel like living jelly. Their swim bladders, those gas-filled organs that provide buoyancy in shallow water fish, are completely absent. Instead, they maintain their position in the water column through lipid-filled livers and tissues, so rich in antifreeze compounds that they remain functional even under crushing pressure that would solidify normal cellular fluids. The amphipods of the deepest trenches, those shrimp-like scavengers that carpet the Hadal seafloor, have achieved pressure adaptation through radical body modification. Their exoskeletons, the rigid external shells that protect shallow water crustaceans, have become thin and flexible, more like pressure suits than armor. These creatures can compress their bodies to a fraction of their normal size under extreme pressure, then expand again as pressure decreases, their flexible shells accommodating dramatic changes in body volume. In the Puerto Rico Trench, amphipods have been found at depths exceeding 8,500 meters, their bodies modified by pressure into forms that barely resemble their surface relatives. Their eyes, useless in the absolute darkness of the Hadal depths, have been reduced to simple light-sensing patches, while their antennae have become incredibly sensitive pressure and chemical detectors, allowing them to navigate a world where traditional senses provide no useful information. The bacteria of the deepest trenches represent pressure adaptation, taken to its absolute extreme. These microscopic organisms exist under pressures that compress their cell walls to the very limits of structural integrity, yet they maintain active metabolism and reproduction. Some Hadal bacteria have evolved cell walls so reinforced with specialized proteins that they can withstand pressures exceeding 1,200 atmospheres, forces that would instantly destroy surface microbes. Xenophyophores, giant single-celled organisms, found only in the deepest parts of the ocean, create elaborate shells from sediment and organic debris, These remarkable protists, some growing larger than dinner plates, represent the ultimate expression of single-celled life under extreme pressure. Their cytoplasm, the living substance within their shells, remains active and flowing despite being compressed by forces that would solidify normal cellular contents. The deepest hydrothermal vents, discovered in the Cayman Trough at depths exceeding 4,900 meters, support entire ecosystems adapted to the combination of extreme pressure and scalding temperatures. The bacteria surrounding these vents face the double challenge of surviving crushing pressure while processing the toxic chemicals that pour from the Earth's interior. These organisms have evolved metabolic pathways that not only tolerate but require both extreme pressure and high concentrations of hydrogen sulfide, methane, and heavy metals. At the bottom of the Kermadec Trench, researchers have discovered snailfish living at depths where pressure exceeds 1,000 atmospheres. These fish represent the deepest vertebrate life yet discovered, their bodies so adapted to extreme pressure that bringing them to the surface causes immediate tissue damage from decompression. They exist in a world where the pressure is so intense that their cellular chemistry has been fundamentally altered to function only under crushing force. The deepest dwelling organisms display remarkable longevity, with some individuals potentially living for decades or even centuries in the slow-motion world of extreme pressure. Their metabolism, slowed by the dense water and crushing environment, allows them to exist on minimal food resources while maintaining essential life processes across extended time periods that would be impossible for surface organisms. In the deepest parts of oceanic trenches, organic matter that sinks from the surface world becomes concentrated by pressure into dense, nutrient-rich packages that can sustain entire communities. The pressure acts as a natural food processor, compressing and concentrating organic debris into forms that deep-dwelling organisms can efficiently digest and utilize. These deepest survivors represent the absolute limits of life's ability to adapt to crushing pressure. They exist at the boundary between the possible and impossible, their very presence in the hadal depths proof that life can find ways to thrive in conditions that should preclude any form of biological activity. In the deepest trenches, where pressure reaches its most extreme expression on our planet, these remarkable creatures remind us that the boundaries of the habitable zone extend far beyond anything we might have imagined possible. In the crushing depths where survival seems impossible, deep-sea creatures have written lessons in adaptation that reach far beyond the ocean's boundaries. Their strategies for thriving under extreme pressure offer profound insights that are revolutionizing human technology, reshaping our understanding of life's possibilities, and challenging our assumptions about what constitutes a habitable world. The flexible proteins that allow deep-sea organisms to function under crushing pressure have inspired entirely new approaches to material science. Engineers studying pressure-adapted enzymes are developing industrial catalysts that remain stable under extreme conditions, creating manufacturing processes that can operate efficiently at pressures that would destroy conventional systems. These bio-inspired catalysts are already being used in pharmaceutical production, where pressure-resistant enzymes enable drug synthesis under conditions previously thought impossible. Medical researchers have found that the osmolytes used by deep-sea creatures to protect their proteins offer promising treatments for diseases caused by protein misfolding. The same molecular chaperones that allow deep-sea organisms to maintain cellular function under crushing pressure are being investigated as therapies for neurodegenerative diseases, where protein stability determines the difference between health and devastating illness. The pressure-sensing mechanisms discovered in hadal zone organisms are inspiring the development of new types of sensors and measuring devices. These biological pressure detectors, capable of sensing minute changes in force across extreme ranges, are being adapted for use in everything from earthquake monitoring systems to precision manufacturing equipment. The sensitivity achieved by these organisms far exceeds anything current technology can produce. Deep-sea pressure adaptation has fundamentally altered our understanding of life's boundaries, expanding the definition of habitable environments throughout the universe. The discovery that organisms not only survive but thrive under pressures exceeding 1,000 atmospheres has revolutionized astrobiology, suggesting that life could exist in high-pressure environments on other worlds that were previously considered uninhabitable. The subsurface oceans of Europa and Enceladus, moons of Jupiter and Saturn respectively, exist under ice shells to create pressure conditions similar to those found in Earth's deepest trenches. The knowledge that life can flourish under such crushing conditions transforms these distant worlds from unlikely candidates for life to prime targets for future exploration. The pressure-adapted organisms of our own deep sea serve as proof of concept for life in these alien oceans. Biotechnology companies are harnessing the unique properties of pressure-adapted enzymes to develop new manufacturing processes. These remarkable proteins, which become more efficient under extreme pressure, are being used to create pharmaceutical compounds, synthetic materials, and biochemicals under conditions that would destroy conventional biological systems. The industrial applications of pressure-loving enzymes represent a growing field with enormous economic potential. The study of pressure adaptation has revealed fundamental principles about protein structure and function that are reshaping biochemistry and molecular biology. Understanding how deep-sea proteins maintain their shape and activity under crushing force has led to breakthroughs in protein engineering, enabling scientists to design more stable enzymes for industrial and medical applications. Deep-sea pressure research has also contributed to our understanding of protein folding diseases, conditions where proteins lose their proper shape and become toxic to cells. The molecular mechanisms that allow deep-sea proteins to resist deformation under pressure offer new strategies for preventing or treating these devastating disorders, including Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. The engineering principles discovered in pressure-adapted organisms are influencing the design of deep-sea exploration vehicles and equipment. The soft, flexible strategies used by deep-sea creatures to survive crushing pressure are being incorporated into submersible designs, creating vehicles that can withstand extreme depths while maintaining operational capability. Perhaps most profoundly, the study of pressure adaptation has revealed life's extraordinary capacity for innovation in the face of seemingly impossible challenges. These organisms demonstrate that what appears to be an absolute barrier can become an opportunity for evolution to explore entirely new solutions. Their existence under crushing pressure expands our conception of life's resilience and creativity. The philosophical implications extend beyond science into our understanding of persistence and adaptation. Deep-sea creatures facing pressures that would instantly destroy surface life have found ways not merely to survive, but to flourish. Their success under extreme conditions offers lessons about resilience, flexibility, and the power of gradual adaptation to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. The deep sea's pressure-adapted organisms remind us that life's boundaries are far more flexible than we once believed. They demonstrate that extreme environments don't necessarily limit life, but can instead drive it toward remarkable innovations. In studying these creatures, we learn not only about the mechanics of survival under crushing pressure, but about life's fundamental capacity to transform limitations into opportunities for extraordinary adaptation. And so we return to the surface of our journey, carried upward by currents of wonder and understanding. We have descended through the crushing depths where pressure reigns as both destroyer and creator, where forces that would flatten us in an instant have become the gentle embrace that cradles Earth's most extraordinary life forms. In the deepest trenches, where 1,000 atmospheres press down with the weight of entire oceans, we have witnessed evolution's most patient artistry. Creatures so soft they seem made of liquid dreams, yet so perfectly adapted they cannot exist anywhere else. Fish with skulls of cartilage and hearts that beat in rhythm with crushing force. Bacteria that breathe pressure itself, thriving only where the ocean's weight becomes unbearable to surface life. These beings have learned what we are only beginning to understand, that what seems like limitation can become liberation, that what appears impossible can become inevitable. In their yielding bodies and pressure-loving cells, they carry the profound lesson that survival sometimes requires not resistance, but surrender to forces greater than ourselves. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, remember that somewhere far beneath the waves, in darkness older than continents, creatures pulse and glide through their crushing paradise. They need the weight of the entire ocean above them to live, to breathe, to dream their slow, deep dreams. Sleep well, fellow traveler. Let the gentle pressure of blankets remind you that even crushing force, when transformed by patience and time, can become the softest embrace